we should get started. It's a couple minutes after 7, and I think most everybody who's here is going to be here. I wrote down some thoughts of mine on a piece of paper, but it's really, everything's up for discussion, and we're looking for ideas. And I think I was tasked last time with forming a committee, and I totally lost it, so I apologize for that. But we would like to form a committee to study the joining of the town of Chatham and the village of Chatham municipalities in the same building. And I'm going to ask for anybody interested in volunteering on that to get a hold of me.
I'm going to volunteer.
Okay.
Sure.
Excellent.
Maybe we got someone
Right. This building, the Tracy Memorial, for those who weren't here last time, was built for the village of Chatham by the Tracy family, by quite a well-renowned architect. Back in the 1900s, like 1910, I think is the date. And recently we realized that it needs a lot of maintenance, more maintenance than we can practically afford with our tax base for the village. So we started to consult with an architectural firm to get kind of a plan together so that we can go after grants, federal grants to restore the building. Have a moment of silence. That should do it. So we've gone after funding for the building. We recently applied for a historic preservation grant, which we just interviewed with one of the representatives from that facility today. We toured the building. They understand where we're coming from, and we'll hear probably in July or August whether we are going to receive a grant from that or not. But this historic preservation grant lays the groundwork for all the other grant applications. If we get this grant, then we're going to be eligible for a lot of other grants as far as the renovation of the building. And included with that would be fire escape and elevator. Part of another conversation is that we've been talking with the town over the years about the concept of sharing the space, possibly saving the taxpayer money. Hopefully that would be the result in improving customer service. I don't know how that would look, how we would do it, but that would be part of the job of the committee, would be to talk this out, come up with ideas, and see, maybe make suggestions how we can move forward, and then the town and village can decide. But part of the complication of this is that the village of Chatham is partly in the town of Chatham and partly in the town of Ghent. So we have to kind of navigate this whole thing. And I don't know how we do that, but I wanted to invite the representatives from the town of Ghent here. Patty Matheny and Chuck Wood are on the Ghent Town Board. So thank you for coming. Appreciate it. And I would just like to open this up to discussion.
Can I speak from the town standpoint?
Absolutely.
Yesterday I went to interestingly enough, Judy Grunberg was there, Tom came, because of his interest in Kava, and my thoughts coming back from that meeting were that there were a number of different entities that might apply for a grant through that council. And that would be for the town of Chatham Parks. Oh, sorry, Landry, you were there too. With me. The parks, the Tracy would fall under community, and I believe that Judy Grunberg's, he has 21 states, and I didn't have a chance to call her today, but I will call her to see if we might be able to put something together. Another opportunity for grants. We have to move quickly on that because of the time frame. It just opened up beginning of May, and I think it closes as of July or something like that. So getting the grant in, we would have to move. But from the town standpoint, and I said it before at one of the previous meetings, we've got a lovely building. Everyone is very comfortable. It works well for, I think, customer service. We don't have a mortgage. We do have upkeep, and those figures we're gathering, putting it together. But we sit on over 100 acres, which is being put to good use by a private organization that does their own thing and doesn't really cost the town very much. So what would the advantage be to the town to come into this project with the village? And of course, it would be to consolidate, and the ultimate goal is to save the taxpayer dollars. And to build up the economy for the Main Street village. Anytime somebody comes for a fishing license to the town clerk or goes to talk to the assessor, they come into town. And maybe they stop next door to Chatham Brewing or go down to the Price Chopper. There's so much involved in the economics. But bringing people together is where it builds the economy for an area. So getting back to the town's perspective, and that's what I think we have to come to terms with. The biggest thing, the biggest advantage is that, well, first of all, we are paying rent in the village, approximately $20,000 to $25,000 a year. But the expenditure for that can stay as it is. We can stay a tenant, but maybe at some point we'd find somebody else. So we would have to find an alternative for our court. But the biggest advantage is that if our town hall and the 100 acres were to be sold, there would be a realization of a great influx of money, and that property would go back on the tax rolls. And if you're dealing with, I have no appraisal on it, if you're dealing with $1 million, $1.5 million, $1.6 million worth of property value, fair property value, then you've got a significant revenue stream as far as taxes are concerned. So those are the things that I think the town has to do some due diligence. I'm not interested necessarily in spending a lot of money on a feasibility study. However, it seems like that's something that we should consider. I did talk to Barton and Judas today, and they certainly can help us. I asked them for ballpark figures on what it would run, and if we could provide them with accounting figures, which we certainly could, an appraisal, things like that, their fee would be much less. But they think somewhere between $8,000 and $15,000, and that's being, the $15,000 are very much on the high side. So we felt it would be probably around 8 or 10. But that would include figuring out how much space each department would need, the whole ramification of making a move and whether it would be profitable to the citizens and their tax base over a long period of time. So we're not looking at the next 2 or 3 or 4 years. We're talking about, you know, a good 30, 40 years out. Because once a move like that is made, it's hard to go back. So the due diligence and the recommendations of an advisory committee here, I think would be important. And the reason we haven't, and I really haven't pushed for anything, is I really want to see what the town's financial picture looks like. We have had our accounting firm, Patterson, Koski, Cucci & Howe, closing our books for 2015 and bringing everything up for 2016 to date. So we're having a presentation tomorrow night at our town board meeting, and we'll have an idea of what we can actually do. We've got big dreams, but we have to find out what the pocketbook can handle.
Yeah, at the village perspective on that is that our fund balance is quite good. It's almost right where we want it. But our tax cap allowed us to overspend or raise the levy by $968. So, you know, if health insurance goes up 1%, you know, we're done. You know, so we have to, and you know, our fire department needs another truck. Our DPW is going to need a new loader in a couple of years. You know, and there's street beautification projects we want to do. And how are we practically going to keep business going with this tax cap in place? So, you know, it's a real concern of how are we going to do business without reducing services. So I think we have to be careful how we move ahead with any kind, even the village has to be careful with a renovation project. We don't want to end up generating liabilities that the taxpayer has to pick up.
There are grants out there.
Yeah.
And certainly, working within the scope of each of our jobs, we can't fail. I've never written a grant. There are specific specialties, and getting a grant writer that has a good track record, and you'll try to secure as much money as you can. And you can always do things in phases.
Right. And I think we should be looking at low-hanging fruit, areas where we can work together, where we can take baby steps. I know in the highway departments, we are already sharing services. It's not really documented, so we don't really have an idea of what the dollar figure is going back and forth. But Ghent helps Chatham Village, Town of Chatham helps Chatham Village, and we help when we can. But I don't know what that's something that the superintendents and our DPW is working on. But I know if people are thinking, oh, we'll reduce the DPW, we'll reduce the highway departments, you still need a certain number of equipment and men or women to operate the equipment and take care of the roads. So my impression is that the towns and the village run pretty lean. Nobody's wasting money. I think everybody's is pretty frugal, and with the tax cap especially, it's really caused us to look everywhere for savings. So we have to look for grants.
How do you folks feel?
I'm still concerned with the immediate needs, because we have a grant that
Is there one lift company or is it two lift companies?
Only one, as far as I know. You provided us with another name, but we learned that Easy Lift absorbed one. So there's really only one lift company.
Okay, that's what I remember. Yes, we got a bid back in like 1999 from this company.
Yeah, Easy Lift has absorbed them. But I asked them the drawings and I said, oh, we better come down and make sure that it fits. So they're going to be down on the 24th.
24th of?
It'll be next week, next Tuesday.
Because what I need to do is I need to submit a letter to the JCAP, to the grant board, and tell them that these are the steps we've taken so far. We've solicited bids on 2 occasions.
Right.
We have a bid, and we need some additional time.
Okay.
Because we're supposed to spend that money within, I think it's 180 days of when we got it. So we're coming up against that time
Wow.
now.
Well, I'll let you know as soon as I know.
What's the time frame once we get for being able to? Yeah, I mean,
Well,
how long? When is 180 days up?
it's just about up there. But I'm confident that I can get some more time. And I believe that the cost of the lift, the money that we got for the grant would be expended pretty quickly once the contract is signed. You know, because you're going to pay some money up front. There's going to be a certain amount of money that's going to be paid. And once we have a contract, a signed contract, I'm not really concerned about it.
Right.
The state will be satisfied with that. But what I would like to do is, I would like to be able to say to the state, listen, we got this grant for this lift, we've awarded a contract, now the next phase is coming up for new grants for this year, and I would like to submit an application for a grant for something else. And one of the things that comes to mind is bathroom. In that little space over there. So I don't know that that's something that we can do, but if I had some kind of an estimate from an engineer or an architect for something, you know, that I could show them, I need to have like some kind of a takeoff or something, just like I had for the lift. I submitted it, and I could do it jointly with the town and the village, so that we would not have potential, you know, it gives us a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Just a question on the lift. Thanks so much for your work. Once this girl comes down from Easy Lift and she measures and she says it fits, I know you had concerns about building inspector, the village attorney. Is this another 4 months of process before we get somewhere, or?
My questions at the Easy Lift people was, I wanted to make sure this was ADA compliant, because if it's not, then it's actually worse than not having it. That's the attorney's opinion.
But I mean, when she comes,
And we're good, then we can go ahead with it. And if it's ADA compliant, then we can go.
so that could be decided that day.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to understand the timetable.
The catalog cuts that they submitted indicate that it is ADA compliant.
Yeah.
That's just the catalog.
Yeah.
I want to get back to our vision of sharing. Right now, the space is being shared around the court, right?
Correct.
Is there any other space that's being shared, or any other kind of shared relationships that are ongoing between the town and the village? Is there anything else that's happening other than
In this building?
it's just in general?
The
Because
highway.
huh?
The highway.
The highway, but it's, what I didn't hear was, is there anything, is it informal? Does it just happen? Or is there a formal relationship between the highway and the village?
At the county level, there everybody signs an agreement to share, and so.
So there is a shared.
Yes, and you have, every municipality has to sign into that.
And historically, at least in the recent past, what has been the nature of the relationship between the town and the village around these shared services? What's been the history? Is it a positive history? Is it something that has been filled with difficulties?
No, I would say it's pretty positive.
So there's a basis for at least some relationship around some shared services.
Yep.
The shared services are usually related to equipment. So like, we have a paving machine. So we can do certain, when the village needs something done with paving, then we can share that equipment and our guys.
We buy the material.
But, and there's a give and take on that and for services and that type of thing. But none of it can be just given.
No, I understand that it's got to be within a framework of some sort of contract or some sort of understanding.
Yeah, I get the impression that most of the time it's pretty informal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Between the town and the village.
Well, that's the thing too, is when Tom and I were talking, my impression is that it's been so formal for so long that if somebody from state wanted to look at it and say, what are you guys doing, to share services, we have documentation.
Well, they do have documentation. They keep it at the DPW, so they'll write down when they work again, when the traffic came in, or, because that goes to the state, like county and then state, so they do keep it.
So that would be good. Say, hey, this is how we do share this and this and this.
Are there other areas that you're thinking that sharing would be a possibility if there was more intentionality?
Yeah, I think building inspector.
Because right now, it's the same person, isn't there? Is it the same person that's for both the town and the village?
No,
they're
not
different.
this time. Well, we potentially could have one person that we could all share that would work in the town of Chatham village again.
So the building inspector, what other areas do you think might be able to be shared?
Assessment,
That's,
code enforcement. The towns wanted police.
Well, certainly buying supplies, if you were in the same building and you would be using about the same amount of utilities, you have to heat the building, you have to have the electric lights on. Being able to buy equipment together, like computers.
At the risk of bringing up a sore point, but there was something about the parking lot, right? There was some kind of agreement with the parking lot.
Yeah.
The village and the town share or jointly own this parking lot next to the brewery.
Yes. Even to this day.
Even to this day.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was some problems with that, right? At one time. I mean, there were some problems with the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mike?
Just a question, under shared services, like for the assessor and the building inspector, these positions are in each government agency now, right? So if we were to share, there's not any savings there, right, per se? It's just, instead of having 3 people part-time, it might be a full-timer or something like that?
Could be.
Well, the town has gone from a full-time position to possibly 2 code enforcement, zoning enforcement, and a clerk, all staying within the same budget.
Okay.
The one, because of health insurance, pension, all those salaries, not just salary, it's a fringes.
Thank you.
We met several weeks ago, and person representing the Department of State was here. He mentioned that there were grants available for feasibility studies.
Right.
And we just, so far we haven't pursued it. There's another avenue for a grant that they were particular. There was also a time constraint with that.
Yeah, it's very short notice.
But that was, as I recall, about 50% for the feasibility study.
Right.
The state would go up to about $400,000 if they qualify. But I also think we need to find out what the residents want, what the taxpayers want to do. I mean, I think that's the biggest question mark. Do they feel that they would be comfortable? Would the village residents feel comfortable in that, along with the folks in the town? Like to see it happen.
Right.
Whether we put it out for public meetings or put it on a November referendum. I mean, we need some input from the citizens.
This is kind of what was discussed at the last meeting, and I don't think until you have this committee put together where you actually know what you feel you could do together, that we're going to actually go anywhere. The renovation of this building has to go forward with or without the town or anybody else.
Right.
The building needs attention. But as far as how you're going to use it and if we need to make additional space, I see that it's down the road quite a bit, and a lot of it has to do with the committees that you put together to look at it and see how anybody will benefit from this.
Yeah.
Just my thoughts.
No, I agree with you. It's a bigger issue than we can just decide right here. And I think a committee will help engage the community more, and it also can be brought to the press. And it does need a lot more public awareness of what's going on, what potentially could happen. They could weigh in on it.
In terms of shared services, I don't know whether this really comes under it, except that the recreation, certainly the summer recreation program is totally paid for by the town, although it takes place within the village, right?
No.
Very near the village.
It's not, but the village children, whether they are in Chatham again, are part of that. So,
Well, because they live in the town of Chatham, in the village of Chatham.
yes, but if you live in the village of Chatham,
Even if you're in Ghent.
you get, even if you're in Ghent, you get resident tuition, whatever.
Right.
So even if it's not looked at as a shared service, it's something that the town is actually providing for the village.
Right.
So I think that just needs to be, something to consider. It is definitely a benefit to the village and the town.
Maria, I'd be interested in hearing more about feasibility study and what kind of space requirements you would need, because certainly as this building stands right now.
So this room would be about the right size for my office.
Right, your office maybe, but I'm thinking in terms of document storage, and I know you're tight on that even downstairs for what we have. So if we brought the town documents in for, where are we going to put those? Are we going to have to move out the food pantry that's down there, relocate them, who have been long-time tenants? If we decide at some point down the road to go with an addition on that, what is that going to look like and what's that going to require? Square footage. I don't see this as happening, in any real immediate near-term future.
Well, because that's what the feasibility study would take into consideration.
I hope so.
Right.
The other question I had is, you mentioned 100 acres around the town. Has there ever been any consideration of subdividing that and selling off part of that property, town hall excluded, and keeping the town hall as the town hall, but being able to sell off, subdivide some of that property and sell that off? as a source of income and get some of that property back on the tax rolls.
It seems to me that before we connect to the public, which I do think needs to occur, don't we need to know whether we can do this or not? And it seems to me the only way, you got two choices in terms of what you can do. You can either just do the court, or you have to do the whole government. Otherwise, it's just not practical.
Right.
It makes no sense. I mean, those are the two questions, and it's not practical. Why spend our energy, doing a lot of work with the public when it's not even a possibility? This doesn't make sense.
That's why he can spend money for a feasibility study. I think that's enough to know.
Well, certainly the court is working. From our perspective, it works.
Right, I mean, there are two separate projects. One might be feasibility, but it might be showing the court is doable.
And the possibility of sharing village court and town court in the same space also makes sense. And there would probably be OCA money to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, those sharing costs, I think, are more similar to the costs that the guy from the state was talking about. The money from OCA really is money that goes specifically to, they're not really interested so much in consolidation as they are in the system court operations.
Okay.
So to the extent, if we had a lift out there, then the village court might be able to use this space upstairs.
Right.
And that's part of the reason why we got the grant in the first place. Was because we were saying that we're trying to work towards sharing space. Because I'm the judge downstairs and I'm the judge upstairs, so that's part of the whole thing.
Right.
What was it that Valatia did in terms of they dissolved one of their courts, right? Was
I
it the
think
town?
they eliminated the court.
The village court?
And did they have a village police force?
No.
No, just
But,
village court.
so in Valatia, there's
You
one.
go to town court. They dissolve their court completely, so that if you get a ticket in Valatia, you go to town. The town can go to court. They don't have a court.
Okay, so
So they still have a village court in Kinderhook, and they have a town court in Kinderhook. They just don't have a village court in Valatia.
Right. They're the village of Valatia. A village of Canada court.
so that's the savings to the residents of Valatia. Right?
You'd have to ask them whether there was savings associated with it or not. I'm really not sure. Because you end up shifting. I think they did it because of the space. They were moving into that Glen building over there, so it had to do with different space that they were moving into, and so it made sense for them to do it at that time. So I don't know. Well, that's something you have to ask.
Well, speaking of village court, our village court breaks even pretty much. It comes out a little positive cash flow, but it's not really a money-making proposition. But we're not losing, we're not funding it with taxpayer dollars. It's providing its own income, basically. So it's not a cost to the taxpayers to have it, and in a way, it's a service.
The judges are not supposed to be concerned about whether the court makes a profit.
Oh, no. I didn't.
The mayor can be.
But no,
No,
because we do our budget, and I see in the budget line that, it brings in a little more than it costs, and so it's a service, and I'm not going to ask you about that. But if we were going to try to build a village court, then it might not be even worth doing, but it already exists.
There's a lot more speeding cases in Chatham than there are in Valatia.
What's that?
There's more tickets. I can give you the whole history of the village card, but I'll just sit here as a reporter. I do have a question about the fire escape that I missed. Did you guys actually fix that? Is that still up in the air? Wasn't that one of the
The
major-
fire escape is still up in the air.
But that was part of the ADA, wasn't that part of
Yes.
the compliance?
The current fire escape is not up to code. It's too narrow. It's not really, it's not a great fire escape. But we shored it up and supported it in case it does have to be used, it's usable.
And the village paid to shore it up?
We did, yeah. But if we were to build a new one, it would have to be enclosed, have a roof over it. So that's the new. So all of a sudden you're talking, $100,000. I don't know what a fire escape costs.
And you have to have them for a public building, or what's the?
Well, at one point, friends of the Tracy were talking about doing fundraisers, and is that something that, and selling pieces of the building, a brick, a wing or things like that. Is that something that they're still interested in doing?
Well, the Friends of the Tracy is an active committee that meets monthly. We still haven't received our 501c3, so we haven't pursued any funding at this point. However, in our meetings, we have a lot on our burners as far as where we're going to go as soon as that happens. It also allows us an avenue to pursue grants as a 501c3 versus a municipality. We're going to start to be present at all the functions in the town and village. People will soon know who the Friends of the Tracy are and what our plans are. We're here to assist. Well, right now it would be the Tracy in trying to raise funds to take care of the parts of the building that were noticed in the study that was done by Mr. Waite, which would basically secure this building so we don't have issues going forward where it costs us a lot more. Things need to be tightened up and corrected at this point or it'll really become a problem later on. So that's what we exist for. How we get there is, like I said, there are plans in place and there's constant planning going on as we go forward to try and pursue money to help the village out with that.
What about the Tracy Foundation?
That is just the fund money that the Tracy family put aside for the village. That is being monitored by the Tracy Foundation. And we receive a check from, the village receives a check from the Tracy Foundation for any earnings that account has made over a year. But that's all the Tracy Foundation does. They manage, they watch the account, and then they supply us with a distribution at the end of the year.
I just had I'm glad you asked that question. I was wondering about private funds. I was sort of behind the 8 ball, but I think if you're going to, for the renovation piece of this, it seems to me that raising private funds is going to be critical. I don't know the cost of doing something like this, but I've been involved with some other projects, and I'm sure there's grant money there, but I don't know how far away you are from getting your 501c3, but I would say that would be really, really important.
Yeah, we plan on that as well. Just, like I say, until that's in place, we really can't go anywhere. We can't take a dollar. But that's, we understand that we have to look for private funding also. Yeah, we're going to look everywhere that a dollar exists.
So the village has been in the grant application process. So we just applied for the historic preservation grant, and if that's awarded, that will open this up to grants from the FDA, dormitory fund, and a bunch of others that we're applying for to fund this renovation. But a big part of it is community involvement, and that is shown by the Friends of the Tracy. And it's also tied in with economic development, how important this building is historically to the village. And, it's very important economically as part of the cultural landscape of the village.
Mike, give them a little plug. There is a Friends of the Tracy Facebook page.
There is, so if you have Facebook, like us and share us.
But, yeah, no, but if people want information on where it's going, because they're doing some great work, and it's a bunch of great volunteers. People get together once a month and volunteer their time, not only in the meeting, but outside the meeting. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes work going on. Then the plan is to take some of the burden of the renovations off the taxpayer and see what kind of fundraising can be done. And Steve Oberon, who's a member, was instrumental in getting us the designation of the national, I'm going to screw this up, National Historic Preservation registration. Yeah, go.
Now you got me mixed up.
I know. But no, and that was a lot of work by many people
On the committee, there are probably 15 people that are actively involved in our group. When we meet monthly, our attendance is near the top every time. It's an excited group of people working for a cause that they truly believe in. Rob Tremper is the attorney that pro bono provides the services for us. He was the fellow that researched the deed of the Tracy and found out exactly how that was to go. And it gave everybody a clearer understanding of where we were with the building. So it's, like I say, it's a really good thing. We have a lot of talented people in the community giving their time every month.
As soon as you get that authorization, you want to put a PayPal button on that.
Oh, we're going to, yeah, we have a fellow already designed. What's that?
Go find and there's so many, all that. There's a lot of ways you can.
Great, thank you very much.
I'm sure. Oh, I wish you remember page.
Yeah.
Tom.
I'm representing the businesses here. One of the things that is very clear, and we've been through a year-long reinvention process, is that at this point in time, there isn't any of our municipalities that is able to lead, or a group that leads economic development, the issues of tourism, the issues of business development, the issues of how it is that we attract people to our area, how it is we deal with it. And I don't know whether or not this can get into the conversation around the Tracy, and the issues of recreation as well. Because it seems to me that there's some areas that are not being addressed at the level that could be addressed, in part because in our area here, there's 5 municipalities that in one way or another make up the 10,000 to 12,000 people that live in this area. And we have the 2nd largest business center in the county now. But going off of this meeting, Hudson right now is just driving the whole thing with 6,000 people. We have about 12,000 people. We have a 2nd center, but yet where can we focus in order that we become a player from an economic development point of view? Not easy, but it seems to me that this conversation, I hope that this can at least be part of the conversation. Is there ways that when municipalities work together, that these issues can be addressed more directly? So I know I said this at the meeting the other night, several of you were there, but I just really want to say that there's so much more that's available to us. But it's not only under our present system, it it's not being driven in a way that allows us to be in relationship to the $350 million that's available in our region. You see, I mean, we're not on the playing field.
It's almost like we're so many small separate units that we're not working together to get some of this big funding.
We're not, and particularly in the village is the hub of our area here in the Chatham area. And I'm not saying that this can be the focus of it, because it's not been necessarily what's been happening, but my assessment, or the assessment of at least COB, is that these 5 municipalities need to be working together for the sake of the whole, that there are real possibilities for us, but it isn't going to happen until we find ways of working together.
Right.
That's really what we're
Tom and I
doing.
have spoken about putting together an economic development
I mean,
for the town and the
and
village.
the village.
The town right now has a number of committees, and it's just so far you can spread your time.
No, I
So
completely.
every councilman has a responsibility, so we will get to it.
No, I completely understand. It's just not risen to a level whereas, for instance, if we had a municipality of 12,000, you can be sure we would have an economic development officer, we would have a tourism officer, we would have a recreation person, we would have things that we cannot now have because of the way in which we're configured. And I'm not saying that we go in any direction. I'm just aware that that's the reality.
Well, we have so much talent in this area.
We do.
And if there was someone that was retired or wanted to do some extra help for any of the towns, we'd love to hear from you. I hope that you would promote that in the article.
So much.
If they have a desire, we'll find something for them to do. Because we need the help.
We did too, yes.
And last night, Patty chaired the broadband initiative. Chatham was the first town to have a committee, but we couldn't go anyplace because the county, which is the driving force, didn't take it up until about 2 or 3 years ago. I'd like to think it was because of the people in Chatham on that committee. But now it's gotten broader and it's Connect Columbia with its own website.
We have a Facebook page too, but not
Right, but that is another component
It is that
of the economic drive for the area, because if we want more money coming into the area, the lowest impact is home occupation. And there's so many people that work downstate, come up here for 4 days, go downstate for 2 or 3 days, and they can't do their business up here because of the present providers. So there are many aspects.
I think a good, reliable, fast web service is vital for business, and we just don't have. It's really it's putting a little bit of a stranglehold on our development. It's not the only thing by any means, but it's a detriment.
You know, I think that something could be helpful at this point is maybe having a number of joint committees, like economic development, the broadband, recreation, that can help bring us together in certain areas to explore, not necessarily doing something like between the boards of the 2 towns, which gets to be a little more official, but just to start with committees that explore and cooperate on the issues that really affect the town and the village, and
I think that's what Tom is trying to do with the co-op.
but I mean, like, certainly an economic development committee. This is something that we really need, and it can't just be the town, it can't just be the village. It can't just be, it needs to be
It has to
all.
be a community.
It has to be-
We're too connected, we're too close to each other to not connect in that way.
So for instance, I don't know, there's no one from Ghent, well, I'm from Ghent, but I live in Ghent, but on the recreation committee, but one of the conversations is there a better way to serve our kids in the summer? Let's just ask the fundamental question. Are we really doing the best for our kids the way it's set up now? Are we doing the best for our businesses the way it's set up now? Are we doing,
For our seniors.
are we doing the best for our seniors the way it's set up now? There's some fundamental needs out there that they're being met, but could we with the same amount of money, can we configure ourselves in a way that we serve those needs in some new ways by just changing some patterns? I don't know that they're huge, but maybe they are. Changing some patterns and trying some new ways of crossing over.
I think it has to come from the governments of the village and all the towns that are involved. And if you don't, I think that's the flow where it has to come from, so that these towns can speak as a unified voice. If you don't have the towns involved, and the governments of the towns forming this community that's beyond each town, recognizing that need, I just think you get stuck. I think the dilemma is, well, how do you break down that resistance to seeing this? It just makes more sense. Recreation has some potential in that area because there's there's more awareness of it in terms of people really contributing to a common program.
Speaking of the flow between information between village, town, sometimes it just the flow doesn't exist. And there's a real disconnect when it comes to people understanding that they live in a town and the village. And we've been struggling with elections, village elections and town elections. You actually live in Ghent, you can't vote in the town election. But people just don't know, living, like I live across the street, I wouldn't necessarily know that I also live in the town of Chatham. But I happen to, because it's been drilled into my head.
My friend went to go vote for me, and he went to the polls and he said, but I don't see her name on the record.
And there's, it's these layers of government that actually, it's just so confusing that it works against working together. And maybe as a starter, we can have a liaison between Chatham, Ghent, and Village. On boards, I think Gunnar Warden has volunteered to be the liaison to the Ghent board. And I would like to see a liaison between town of Chatham and Village, and vice versa, just so the information can flow. Maybe it doesn't actually have to be a person, but maybe we can set up some form of communication so we all know what's kind of going on. I like the INBI website. That's a good one with, it just lays out what's happening. Or Ghent Can is another really great way to get information out. WGXC is another good program for getting information out. But some way that we can, all feel like we're working together instead of being different, separate, apart.
Well, the town has just launched a Facebook page.
Okay.
So we will be posting.
I think that's one of the problems, in all honesty, is that everyone marches to their own drummer and they have an identity, and I think there's that sense that you want to keep that, you own it, and I think that's important. But I think some way in which all of those things could be brought together, centralized of what's happening in the town of Austerlitz and Canaan and
Oh, and
Chatham,
Galatia, let's not
Ghent,
forget Galatia.
Kinderhook. I mean, they're all within, you know, Berry Farm is in the town of Kinderhook.
Right.
You know, it's like we think, oh, I'm going to Berry Farm, and I don't know, it could be Ghent or Chatham.
Well, we
And a
also
lot of
have
states in
to
Kinderhook.
we've got several school systems.
Well, yeah,
You know,
but that's even another
That's
conversation.
another problem, but I live in the Ichabod Crane district. And those of us in Ichabod Crane, most of the people there don't even realize they live in Chatham. They think they live here.
Well, North Chatham is Ichabod Crane.
And I'm sure some of us in Lebanon, people may think they live in Lebanon. Maybe it's not quite too strong, but there is that issue, they're really identity.
Right. And there, yeah, I guess it's in various ways. But I think, you know, finding that kind of hub for all of the information from the outlying areas coming together. And I think Indy works well with that because it is that and maybe it's a little too broad. And maybe we want to stay within the neighboring communities.
Yeah, well, I meant something, you know, a platform like
Right, yeah.
And GXC I was just listening to it this morning, and here's the meetings in the area, like the meetings in Hudson and Greenport, and, you know, this different kind of meeting, that different kind of meeting. You know, it was really, it was useful.
I just want to say that listening to you all speak, that I find it very heartening to realize that the intention is for cooperation amongst the two towns and the village, because I don't know that that was the same tone that I heard a decade ago. So this is, to me, that's very encouraging.
Well, thank you. I think that we all need each other, you know, to work together for a common, not to lose our identities, but to work together. Rather than let this go on too long and everybody get bored, I just want to kind of wrap it up a little bit and say we do want to form a committee to look at this. The talk of consolidation, shared services to Tracy. So if anybody is interested in that, please contact me, and I'll send out an email to the group. But I just want to get that out before everybody forgets that. But do we have any closing thoughts?
I just want to thank you very much for hosting us.
Oh, you're welcome. I think this has been a good meeting. Yeah. Thank you for coming.
We're going to home to more.
Thank you for coming.
No, this is really good.
Everybody, thanks for coming out. Appreciate it.
It's raining night.